Maisie. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm a student advisor at the Office of International Students and Scholars. So my portion of today's workshop is going to be all about employment authorizations. So everybody here should be on a J-1 visa. If you, maybe by mistake, are a J-1 scholar instead of a J-1 student, then this workshop would not be for you. So if you're a J-1 EAP student or a J-1 degree seeking student pursuing a bachelor's, master's, or doctorate degree, then you're in the right place. If you're a research scholar or a professor or student intern, then this workshop is not for you. And if you're looking for information about J-1 scholar employment, then you can check out our website or email our J-1 scholar advising team. So let me start by sharing my screen. Okay, so our presentation will go over the two types of employment that students can apply for, J-1 students. So anytime a J-1 student wishes to pursue a work opportunity, get paid or unpaid employment experience, you would definitely need an employment authorization. It just depends on what type of work and where you are in your program. That's what determines which type of employment authorization you would need. So I never want any J-1 students to assume that they can do any type of work without an employment authorization. To maintain your status, you need these authorizations before you actually begin working. And if you ever have a question like, oh, I'm getting paid, but this sounds like kind of a gray area. If you ever have questions like that, it's always better to just ask an OISS advisor rather than assuming that you don't need the authorization. So the first type we'll go over is called on-campus employment, and the second one is called academic training. Number one, on-campus employment. What is considered on-campus employment is if students are hired and employed by UCSB. This can be paid or unpaid work, and if it is paid, your check would be coming from UCSB. The most common examples include teaching assistantships or research assistantships for our graduate students, or for undergrads and EAP students, oftentimes we see them working as a dining hall worker or in the disabled students program as a note taker, for example. Of course, there are so many other examples of work that you can be doing on campus. These are just some common ones, like I said. Another thing that could be considered on-campus work is participating in research studies for compensation. So sometimes you'll see those ads circulating around campus saying things like, oh, if you meet these criteria, come to our lab and we'll pay you to participate in research. That'd be payment from the university. So you would want to check with us about getting your employment authorization. When am I eligible? Students are eligible to apply for on-campus employment as soon as you get to UCSB. There's no waiting period that you need to hang out for. How many hours can I work? Well, during the academic term, meaning fall, winter, or spring, you can work up to 20 hours per week. And then during break periods, which is like fall, winter, or spring break, or summer break, you can work over 20 hours per week. And it's really important to note that this is counting the combined total number of hours that you're working per week. So let's say you're working for DSP as a note taker for 10 hours a week. And then you get another job working in the dining hall for 10 hours a week. That's okay during the academic term because combined, you're only working 10 hours each job and it totals 20. So that's okay. What you would not be able to do is work over 20 hours in any single job during the academic term, or working two jobs that combine for over 20. So if you did DSP note taking for 15 hours a week and you wanted to work at the dining halls for 10 hours a week, that would not be okay during the academic term because that's over 20 hours per week. How do I get the authorization? You'll start by logging into UCSB Global, and then you'll hit J-1 Student Services and click on the on-campus employment request. Our processing time at OISS is 5 business days, and you'll get a confirmation email and an employment verification letter once your request has been approved. If you don't have a social security number yet, you can use the verification letter that we give you to go and apply for one. You must have the authorization prior to beginning work. This is a really big point. Working without prior authorization is a violation of your visa status. So when you're talking about or looking for employment, it's super important that you communicate with your employer and let them know, hey, I'm applying for this job, but I'm not able to start working until I have this employment authorization from OISS. So if you submit the authorization too late, and you've already started working, that could bode not so well for your visa status. So just apply for the employment authorization as soon as possible and never start working until you have this authorization from OISS approved. When would I need a new validation? Once your current authorization expires. So you can request an authorization for a maximum of 1 year. So we see this more commonly with our graduate students. So if you're going to be a TA for the chemistry department for the whole academic year, then you can get an authorization that covers the whole academic year. And once that authorization expires, you would need to apply for another one if you plan to continue working. If you get a new job, you would also have to get a new authorization. These authorizations are job specific. It's not just a general, you're approved to work anywhere on campus. You have to get it for the specific job. So if you're working at the dining hall and you get this authorization for the dining hall job, and then you're like, oh, I want to get another job at DSP, the Disabled Students Program, you would need to apply for an additional work authorization. Another thing to note is that the validation cannot exceed your DS 2019 program end date. So for our EAP students, you all are at UCSB with us for 1, 2, or 3 quarters. Let's say you're only here for 1 quarter, and that's this quarter that we're in right now, winter. Winter quarter ends on March 18th. So if you want to work on campus this quarter, you would not be able to do an on-campus work authorization past the end date of your DS 2019, which would be March 18th, 2022. So just check your DS 2019, make sure you know when your program end date is, and know that you cannot have a work authorization on campus past that date. Okay, we're moving on to academic training, but I see we have a question in the chat. Let me just see if it's for on-campus work. Oh, this is a great question. What is the policy for work within the student newspaper, the Daily Nexus? Yeah, that's a great question. So the Daily Nexus is a part of UCSB's campus. If you're going to work there and but despite whether you're getting paid or not, then you should submit an on-campus work authorization before you start working. You're welcome. Okay, academic training. What is academic training? This is another type of employment authorization. It's another opportunity for you to gain work experience in your field of study, but off campus. It also facilitates continued cultural exchange, and it can happen during or after the completion of your academic program, meaning your EAP program, undergrad or graduate degree. So the key difference here is that this work authorization is for off campus. The past one that we just talked about is obviously on campus, and that is something that you can do up until the day you graduate or complete your program. Academic training is an opportunity for you to work off campus, and it can be either before you complete your program or after. We'll go over both types. When am I eligible? So there is a waiting period for this authorization. After you complete your first quarter of full-time enrollment at UCSB, then you can apply for academic training for the following quarter. So if you're an EAP student here for fall, winter, and spring quarters, at the end of fall, you can apply to do academic training in the winter or later. The amount of academic training time you're eligible for depends on your academic program. So for our EAP students, you can do as much academic training that is equal to your program duration time. For bachelor's and master's students, it has to be equal to the program duration time or 18 months, whichever is less. And then for our doctorate students, equal to program duration time or 18 months, whichever is less. But after program completion, they're eligible for an additional 18 months. So I'm very much an examples person. So let's go over some examples to really make sense of what those time restrictions mean. So EAP students eligible for the same amount of time that they're enrolled at UCSB. So if you're only enrolled on EAP for 1 quarter, that gives you 3 months of academic training that you can use. 2 quarters is 6 months, 3 quarters is 9 months. And then for our bachelor's and master's students, it's 18 months or the amount of time it takes you to complete the program, whichever is less. So let's say you're a bachelor student and it takes you the regular 4 years to complete your degree program. Even though you were enrolled for 4 years, you still only get the 18 months of academic training. And then same for a master's student. Even if you finish your program in 2 years, you still just get the 18 months of academic training. And then a big difference is for our doctorate students. They get 18 months of academic training plus an additional 18 months of training after they graduate. So even if it takes you 6 years to complete your program, you still just get the initial 18 and then an additional after graduation. If doctorate students do not use their first 18 months of academic training before they graduate, then you can still have access to a total of 36 months after you graduate from your doctorate program. Okay, when can I do academic training? Either before or after you have completed your academic program. The 2 types here are pre-completion and post-completion. So pre-completion is obviously before you complete your academic program, and you cannot exceed 20 hours of work per week during the academic term. So this is a similar rule to the on-campus employment portion. But work can exceed 20 hours per week during breaks and summer vacation. You can be authorized for pre-completion AT up until your DS 2019 program end date. Now for post-completion academic training, this occurs after you've finished your academic program at UCSB. Your work has to exceed 20 hours per week. And we give you an authorization that will actually extend your DS 2019 end date. But it's really important not to let your DS 2019 expire. So let's say your DS 2019 ends on March 18th, 2022. Come March 19th, 2022, you're in your grace period already. And if you were like, oh, shoot, I really wanted to apply for post-completion academic training. But if it's already past your DS 2019 program end date, we would not be able to extend your DS after that date. So be sure to plan ahead and apply for your extension before your DS 2019 actually expires. Okay, where can I work on academic training? Anywhere in the US, as long as your job meets all the academic training requirements. Of course, if your pre-completion academic training, you probably would not want to be going to another state to work because you need to be on campus to complete your program. So, but pre-completion can really be anywhere off campus. Post-completion can be on or off campus. And for both authorizations, the job has to clearly relate to the curriculum of the major listed on your DS 2019. So if you're looking at your DS 2019 on the front page and go down to section 4 and look at where it says subject/field code for our degree seeking students, that will say student is seeking insert like bachelor's degree in mathematics. But for our EAP students, you all have the same subject field code, which is a liberal studies code. And so you don't technically have a major in the traditional sense on your DS 2019 because you're a non-degree seeking student. So that kind of means the world is your oyster, as we like to say. So to EAP students, you don't have to find a job that is related to your home university major. You can really find any bona fide job or internship for academic training because for liberal studies, a general studies non-degree, it's kind of as though everything's related because you're in a general studies. Of course, you'll want to think about your, long-term employment goals and maybe even something that is applicable that could help you at your home university. But at least for our purposes right now in this moment, you can pretty much find an internship or job anywhere as long as it's bona fide, like I said. So it could not just be like, oh, I'm going to be an intern and make Xerox copies and get everybody coffee and lattes. So that wouldn't be a bona fide internship. It does need to have some academic components to it, but it can be in any subject. Okay, so how do I apply? The first thing you'll want to do is review all the application requirements and materials on the OISS website. And then you'll log into UCSB Global, hit the academic training request and submit that. Our processing time is 10 business days, and you'll receive an email confirmation when it's been approved. Your new DS 2019 will show your academic training authorization and it will be provided to you along with an authorization letter. Again, you have to have this authorization prior to beginning work. If you don't and you start working, it is a violation of your visa status. So plan ahead and do your best. Okay, what are my reporting requirements? So anytime you change your address, you would need to update that in UCSB Global. That's, anytime you're a UCSB student, but it also applies to if you're on academic training. Definitely contact OISS in advance if you change your name, if you lose your academic training job, if you want to end it earlier than you had applied for, if you want to extend it for a longer time, if you want to add another academic training opportunity, or if you just want to change employers and get a different job. Also, there is an academic training final evaluation form that is due to OISS within 30 days after completing the training. That's a form that's available on our website. The end. Okay, so I can take your questions for any employment related things on campus, pre-completion academic training, post-completion. You can type them in the chat and I'll respond. Okay. One question is I can't find there on Gold to find the place where you apply. Oh, yeah. So it's actually not on Gold. We're going to be on UCSB Global. So I could share how to find UCSB Global. It's the same place where you applied for your DS 2019 to come to campus. But if you're on the UCSB OISS website, and then click this gold UCSB Global tab right here, it will take you to the platform. It'll have you log in with your username and password. I can't show you because I'm not a student. I'd have to find a student's record and then show you that way. But yeah, this is how you find the hub for all your student requests. Do you have any recommendations for finding academic training opportunities? We do. In fact, my colleague will go over how to search for jobs and internships. So coming up soon. How do we apply for research assistant? That could also be covered later. You told us that we can start applying for academic training after completing first full-time quarter. Does it apply for both pre-completion AT and post-completion? Yes, that's a great question. In order to apply for either types of academic training, you do need to wait after your first full-time quarter is over. If I get an internship outside of the UC system this summer, for instance, on an NGO or a think tank, is that AT or some other type of internship? It would need to be academic training since it would be off campus. So yes. Is it possible to go to my home country for a couple of months and start my academic training in August or September? So the job would have to be inside the US while you're physically here. I'm not sure if you were asking if you could work from your home country. Okay, yeah, so the job does need to be inside the US. do we apply for this before we actually get the job? That's a great question. So I guess I could show you, since we're already on the website. If you go, oh, that was the wrong thing. We are current students. We are J-1 students. If you go to employment and click academic training, for example, you'll see pretty much everything we just went through, but also the application materials are listed here. You will see that for both pre and post completion academic training, you do need to have a job offer letter, amongst other things. So the answer is you would need a job offer before you could even apply for academic training. If a question is asked about sponsorship as part of an online online application, do we have to answer, yes, I need sponsorship? No, not for anything for on-campus employment or for, academic training, because your sponsor is UCSB and you're on a J-1 visa. And these are all authorizations that UCSB, your sponsor, approves for you. So you don't need another company to sponsor a new visa for you. Oh, clarification. I think she's asking whether we can travel back to our home country, travel outside the US, and then come back for academic training. Oh, I see what you're saying. I'm assuming that would be after you complete your program. So if you, let's say your DS 2019 ends on March 18th, right? And then on March 19th, you leave the US, you would not be able to get back in because you're in your grace period. And so when you're in your grace period, you have 30 days to leave the US. And once you do that, you wouldn't be able to get back in. But if you know that you are wanting to do academic training after you graduate, and it's before, let's say it's like the beginning of March, you apply for post-completion academic training, you get your DS 2019 extended to June, so it's already been extended to June, then you could leave the US and come back in as long as your visa is not expired, and then pick up with your work. So I guess it sounds like it's pretty situational. I would recommend, and I don't know everyone's full situations here, so I'd recommend asking an advisor about your specific scenario. If my visa expires at the end of winter quarter, March 18th, does academic training mean that I can extend my visa for an additional 3 months if I find an internship? Yeah, you could extend your visa, but to do so, you would have to leave the US, go to a consulate, show them your new DS 2019, which has been extended, and then they would give you a renewal. You cannot extend your visa or renew it anywhere inside the US. You'd have to leave and come back. Yeah. Okay, that's perfect timing. We're right at 4. My portion is up. Thanks everyone for the great questions. If you ever need to find your your OISS advisor, if you go to the student advising page and then scroll down to the bottom, you just find your family name and then you'll see who your assigned advisor is. You can schedule an appointment with them or find their email right there. Thank you.
Maddie, we had one last question in the chat. If you could maybe answer this. Can we leave the US during our grace period and then come back with a travel one?
Yeah, you could in theory, but then you wouldn't have access to academic training anymore. All you would be allowed to do is be a tourist if you're on a tourist visa. I think that's what you're saying, tourist visa? Yeah, okay.
All right, thank you. Next up, we'll hear about the Capital Internship Program.
Thanks, Megan. Hi, everybody. My name is Emily Matzberger, and I am the Associate Director of the Capital Internship Program, which the UC Washington Center, or UCDC for short, is housed in. Before I share my screen, I am going to put into the chat box the website address for the program. Okay, there it is, and I'll go ahead and share my screen. Okay, hopefully it looks kind of funny. Does it look funny?
No, it looks fine.
Okay, it looks cut off on my end. Anyways, if it looks completely odd, please let me know, Megan. Okay, so you guys are here to learn about the UCDC program. We are currently actively recruiting for our summer 2022 program. The application deadline is coming up in about a week and a half on January 24th. All right, so here are just some pictures of some of the students that participated in the program this fall term. It was an in-person program similar to UCSB, and we do expect it to be in person for the rest of the year. Okay, let me get rid of this box. All right, so in terms of the benefits of participating in this program, so there are lots of benefits. One being that it is really a great way to go beyond the UCSB campus and your educational experience here in the country. This program will really provide you with the hands-on professional experience that I think all undergraduate students should really get during their college careers. When you go on this program, you're interning for that professional experience, but in addition to that, you will be receiving academic units. The units you get to choose to take this program for 4 units or for 6 units. It's your choice. It's definitely a great, place and program to get professional development skills, to participate in a lot of the professional development activities that the program has to offer for you. And it is a great place to start networking or to learn how to network. In DC, you will be interning with other students from all around the world. It's a very popular place in the summer for all American students and international students. But one of the best things about the program is that we have an actual center in DC. It's called the UC Washington Center. It is its own building. That's where our students live. Our staff work there as well. We have live-in staff, and then they have activities for our students and guest speakers and networking opportunities right in that building. I don't know if you guys have been to DC before, but everybody is always hustling and bustling, networking, making professional connections. So that is definitely a great place to do that as a young professional. One of the best things about this program is that sometimes it can be challenging to find an internship on your own. Once you're in the program, our staff in DC will actively be involved in the process, and they will guide you through the process each step of the way. And I'll talk a little bit about that later on. A lot of students think that this program is only, beneficial for students interested in the political science field, DC being our nation's capital. That absolutely is not true. This program is open to students from all majors and all interests. So regardless of if you are poli-sci, history, econ, environmental studies, there should be something there for you. DC is such a great city, not just for the professional experience, but also to get a good understanding of what the other part of the country is like, which is vastly different than what California is like professionally. So I'm from that part of the country, and I personally think that it is very important for all students to get the West Coast and the East Coast feel of what it's like to live and work on the 2 different coasts. So that's my own personal pitch for the program. Internship details. So like I said earlier, you get to pick how many units you want to take for this program. For 4 units, you will intern for 24 hours a week. For 6 units, you would intern for 28 hours a week. When you go onto our website, we also talk about taking classes as well. The classes are only relevant if you go abroad for a fall, winter, or spring. During the summer term, courses are not offered, so you will solely be interning. So it gives you much more free time when you're not working. In terms of the internship process, like I said, the staff in DC, they are very hands-on with our students. So once you are in their system, you will be given access to their very large internship database. And they're responsible for keeping it very active with a lot of different listings. The UC Washington Center has been in DC for many, many years now. So a lot of the larger organizations there are very familiar with UC and with our students and the quality of the UC students. So some organizations are looking specifically for UC students to intern for them. So we're very well known there, which works very well for our students. They will also send our newly selected students newsletters and emails to let them know how they should get started in the process. So even though UCDC will provide you with all these resources, it really is your job, though, the student's job, to apply to these positions, to do well on the interview, and to get accepted by these internships. So, you know, typically students will submit applications for 10 or more internships before they get 1 or 2, just because it is competitive once you're in DC, but that's normal. So that is just the way the process works for our students. In this picture here that you see is a photo of one of our former students who interviewed for Hardball, which is a television show that's popular here in the States. Okay, so here's just an example of some of the internship organizations that our students have worked at in the past. As you can see, there's NPR, which is more communications related. If you're more into governmental relations, there's the Department of State. If you're interested in environmental affairs, there's the EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency. The Smithsonian Art Museum is listed here. For those in a STEM field, NASA. I do want to say, though, that for STEM students, although you definitely participate in this program as well, in terms of the types of internships that you should be expecting, we want you to expect more of a policy-related STEM internship rather than, you know, a research lab position. However, if you happen to find a lab position, you can most certainly take that as well. It's just that it's easier for us to help you if you're more geared towards the policy type of an internship. And again, I don't know if I said this clear enough, but you know, the program will provide you with a lot of internship listings, which you are strongly recommended to utilize, but you can also go find your own internship as well. And if you happen to get accepted by that, you just need to get it approved by the UCDC staff. And again, one of the things that they'll be looking for is, you know, what will you actually be doing at that internship? Will you be getting coffee, which we don't want to see. We want to make sure that you're actually doing something concrete in your professional experience. Okay, so this is the UC Washington Center. It's an actual building. It's its own standalone building. I think it has 12 or 13 floors. This is where the students live. So housing is guaranteed on this program. So if you get a spot on the program, you are guaranteed a place to live. It is only 6 blocks from the White House. So it's in a great location. I believe it's also directly across the street from one of the embassies. I think it's the Australian embassy. There's 24 hours a day security, fully furnished apartments. There's live-in staff, there's laundry, there are mental health services there. So our students really enjoy having this building right in the center of everything. Eligibility requirements. So we are looking for students with a 3.0 cumulative GPA or above, and students with junior or senior standing. So what it looks like for our reciprocal exchange students, it's students with 1 completed quarter at UCSB. So let's say if you are a new exchange student that just arrived at UCSB and you're interested in this program, what you can do, I believe, is you can submit a transcript from your home university for now. And then when you actually get your first transcript, your grades from UCSB, we will take a close look at that at the end of winter quarter. The program dates, so they are set and they're official. The move-in date is June 11th to 12th. There is a mandatory orientation on the 13th of June. Then everybody starts their internships, and then the official move-out date is August 20th. This is the program cost. So because it is a UC program and you will continue to receive UC units for this, you will continue to pay tuition. You'll pay the tuition to UCSB. The tuition rate is the same summer tuition rate that students on campus here would pay. So that will vary depending on if you take 4 units or 6 units for your internship. In addition to that would be your campus health insurance. That will vary per individual depending on if you purchase it or if you're able to waive out of it. And then the other costs below are just estimated costs with the exception of the housing. Housing is required, so everybody will have to pay that $369 housing fee. The other things down below, like round trip airfare, local transportation, everything else is kind of estimated depending on how much your airfare is, how much food you eat, so on and so forth. But as you can see here, we build in costs like business attire. So DC is definitely much more formal than what we're used to here in Santa Barbara. So for most students, you will need to get a whole new set of clothing just to go to work. So we kind of build this into your budgets. The application process is pretty straightforward. You can find it on our website here. You want to find yourself onto the UCDC page, click on application and deadlines. Our deadlines are listed at the top, and then the application is listed midway through the page. It's a very simple online form, and then you will have to upload your resume, a statement of purpose, your unofficial transcript, the student agreement form. We do need a letter of recommendation. So you have a choice of submitting a letter of recommendation from an employer or from a professor or instructor. You get to pick. If for some reason you cannot get the letter by the application deadline, that is okay. You just need to let me know that in advance, but I will need to get it very quickly after that deadline, just because I will then need to start processing and making my own decisions. So if you had not checked out the application process yet, I would urge you to do so immediately and to email me if you have any questions. We have weekly meetings about the UCDC program every Friday at 1 p.m. by Zoom. You can find the Zoom link and the QR codes on our meetings and events page on our website. These meetings are led by Sophia, who is a former UCDC participant. She did the program last spring when it was still virtual, so she did a virtual internship. So if you want to talk to a student, that would be a great place to go talk to one and then to learn more about the program. Next Tuesday, we're running a meeting just so that you guys can meet a returnee. Everybody will get to meet Catherine. She just returned from the fall 2021 program. So her program was in person, but she did 2 internships. She did one internship in person and she did another internship virtually. So she'll be able to offer a lot of good firsthand experience of what it was like doing 2 completely types of internships. There are definitely pros and cons to both. And I'm sure she would love to talk to you more about it. You can find the Zoom information on that meeting and events page as well. And now I'm going to show you a video, a student video. So this program is available to all UC students. So this video actually is a video of students from UC Berkeley. So although they are Berkeley students, our Santa Barbara students will have a very similar experience. So I will show this to you regardless because we do not have our own Santa Barbara video yet, but I think you'll get a lot out of it.
UCDC stands for University of California in Washington, D.C., and it's a program in which a cohort of 20 to 30 UC Berkeley students go to the Washington Center in D.C. and do an internship and take classes.
People in D.C. can get internships anywhere in D.C., so that could be with a financial organization talking about fundraising for politicians. You could work in a politician's office. You can work at think tanks. You can work at anything under the sun in D.C. Some people have worked at museums, like even the National Zoo. So whatever you're interested in, DC probably has it.
I was in a in a lobby think tank that was advocating for bipartisanship in Congress. So we were basically advocating to have people in Congress discuss across the Hill.
I interned with END, Citizens United, a financial organization that is promoting campaign finance reform. So it's named after the Citizens United Supreme Court case that let corporations be counted as people, and it let a lot of additional money from corporations be funneled into politics. It's an issue that a lot of people really took problem with, so they started an organization to help fundraise for candidates who are going to do something about it.
When I was doing UCDC, I interned for the United States Supreme Court, and it was the best internship of my life. It was a really, really great experience, and I wouldn't have given up for anything. I was there during a big labor case, so there was huge protests outside the court, and that was something that was really interesting to see because I would walk past all the protests on the way to work, and they would close off the front courtyard and I could watch them from outside the window, and it was something that was really amazing to see because I'm from California. I've lived in California my entire life. I haven't been sort of near at that point, I had never been that close to the federal government, and it was kind of like watching history in the making. Even if that protest wasn't like the biggest protest there ever, it was really interesting to see.
I think what is very great about UCDC is it's not just an internship program like you could have during the summer. You're taking classes at the same time, and I believe that makes a huge difference. Many of my friends were in a seminar with someone lobbying in the Hill for like the past 40 years. So when they're teaching a class about lobbying in Washington, they gonna have like another perspective, not just someone from academia, but having someone who have hands-on experience.
People through UCC can get a really great eye-opening political professional experience. So it's not just going to a protest or working on campaigning, it's really understanding the day-to-day what happens in political office or in the political arena. So you get a really great taste of what that career might be like for you. A lot of times the people who do UCDC and Berkeley are the ones who are the most politically active on campus, and you go to DC and you realize there's so much more out there you don't know. These people eat, live, breathe politics day in and day out, and so you get to recognize and really push yourself to be as involved as you want to be.
Everything that happens with the federal government is literally in Washington, D.C. So when you're around it and you are meeting people and talking to people in your internship or out of your internship, you will always be meeting people that can help you get ahead. If you're interested in life and politics, you'll be talking to a lot more people who are much more interested in that than maybe you would in Berkeley or in California. So it's really just like who you're surrounding yourself with is just a lot more people that are interested in the things that you're interested in.
Okay, sorry about all those glitches. So this is my last slide. If you scan the QR code, it will then take you, I believe, to our Linktree account, which has all of the URLs that you would be looking for on there. You can reach me at this email address here. Here are my drop-in advising hours. Our website is here. And when we are back in person, you can visit me in South Hall. Check out our Instagram account as well. We will be featuring some current students there very soon. So I'm going to take a look at the chat now to see if there are any questions.
Emily, can you confirm that the spring 2022 deadline has passed?
It has passed, yes. Okay, where will we find the registration of this meeting, the meeting for the UCDC meeting?
I believe they were asking about the recording, and we answered that question.
Okay, so what I haven't been answered yet, sorry.
How much will the insurance cost and the summer units? Did you mention that it might vary by student?
Yeah, so for the summer units, it will depend on if you're going to take the program for 4 units or 6 units. It will be the same price per unit as an UCSB. So I don't know if they have set their fees yet for the summer. In terms of the insurance, it's whatever you currently pay here at UCSB. So none of that changes because when you are there, you are still you're still a UCSB student. I hope that makes sense. Let's see. Do we still apply for just here for the winter term? No, because we're done with the spring. We're not taking spring applications anymore. And so I don't think you can skip spring to do summer. Another question about the spring quarter. No, that is done. We're not taking spring applications. Okay, so if you are an EEP student here, you're not quite sure how much it will cost for 4 units or 6 units. If you want to send me an email, I can find that for you. So you want to take note of my email address, ask me that question, I will look it up for you. Are there any other questions? All right, because I do have a couple more minutes, unless if you're ready to go, Bosch.
I am ready to go. I just had a question. Do you guys see my slides? Are you able to see it?
Yes.
Okay. Oh, sorry. Wait. Can you guys see my slides now?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Awesome. Hello, everyone. My name is Vash Doshi, and I am the career counselor for business and entrepreneurship, as well as international students at UCSB Career Services. And today I'm going to briefly talk about job search strategies for J-1 visa holders. So I'm going to go through and after, try to answer as many questions as I can as I go along. And if you have more questions later on, we can leave some time off for that as well. I will also breeze through some slides as I meant to overfill my slide deck so that when I send these slides out to you guys at home, you have something to refer to. So if I don't hit every point in detail, it is by design. And it begins. So when you first start your search, consider sort of what types of positions you want and whether or not you have the qualifications for those positions. Research the positions you're interested in and review the qualifications and duties thoroughly. Also, check out the company profiles. So what we mean by this is look at the job ad. Job ads are actually great insights into what the company is or what the particular job is looking for. Job ads will tell you a set of skills. They will tell you a set of degrees that they may require or prefer, and a set of tools that they want you to know about, right? And if you have, most candidates don't have everything, and employers know that. So if you feel like you have a decent amount, 60%-ish, you are more than ready to apply. 60 to 70% of the qualifications required, then you should be good and competitive enough to apply. So that's your first start, is look at job ads in industry areas, in firms that you're interested in. The other thing we want you to consider is to assess yourself. Really, what that means is you have to look at, when you do your job search strategy, you have to think about what are your strengths, what are your interests, what are your values, and what's your personality like. I really value work-life balance. Now, if I value work-life balance, maybe working on Wall Street might not be the best suited to my work-life balance value, if that's a primary value. So we request students that you have to think about a job as how it fits within these 4 sort of clusters of who you are. So reflect on the things that matter to you in your job search. Before starting your search, kind of write up a list of non-negotiables. And what we mean by non-negotiables are something that you cannot live without, something that is absolutely important and you cannot make a compromise on. For some people, it can be location. For some people, it can be work hours. So for some people, work-life balance. It could be an N number of things. What do you care about? Money, flexible schedules, responsibility, company culture, etc. Prioritizing this list actually feeds into a more nuanced job search strategy than just, Googling data science job and like 20,000 jobs turn up. The other thing that we want to talk about is how to narrow this, because job search is really daunting, and more often than not, you get more results than you anticipated, and you don't know where to start. So, how to narrow your search: industries, companies, position title, location. So, let me begin. You need to understand what you're applying for, consider how you might be a good fit for this position. So write up a list of job titles that interest you, right? A list set of companies that interest you or industries that interest you. Same types of jobs have different job titles. So figure out what are the different type job titles that are given to a particular job that you're interested in. Focus on the skills and the job duties needed to be successful in the position that you're looking at. Are you interested in particular industry area, in particular companies? What are you interested in a particular location? So if you are interested in Los Angeles, then you're bound by that. If Los Angeles area is a non-negotiable for you, then that is a non-negotiable for you. And you should look for firms, industries in your desired field within Los Angeles, right? So are there specific issues or causes that you care about, right? There are certain things that are non-negotiable. For some people, it's social justice and ethics of a particular company. If there are certain companies whose social justice and ethics values don't agree with you, then that's a non-negotiable. So you need to write that down, sort of internalize it, and start your job search strategy based on that. Also consider, you are all international students, but despite that, location is a preference. There are some people who will not like really cold places to work in. And if that's a limitation, then be honest to yourself about it and tailor your job search strategy with that. There are certain things like compensation that, if you are living in Southern California, a very low paying job, however attractive maybe to you, may not work out because of the housing costs or, other things. So think about what you value and structure your job search along those values. There are some people who thrive in smaller and medium firms, and some people who thrive in large enterprises. If you know yourself, if you have had an experience in one of these two and you're like, you know what, I really like this mom and pop job experience. Great, then you know what kind of firm you like, what kind of work environment you like, you know what compensation and location you like. And those are all good and valid factors that narrow your job search from 20,000 results to maybe 200 or 100 results, right? Try not to apply for jobs that you have no interest in or does not fit your career goals. That's one thing. Just because you are seeking a job, throwing a dart in the black is not the best strategy. Now, are you ready to apply? How do you know if you're ready to apply? First, you got to have your documents. And when we mean by documents, we mean a great resume, a strong resume that's ideally approved by us at Career Services. We have a process of how you go through that. A LinkedIn profile that you've created that's very professional and looked at by someone who has critiqued it, and it looks ready to go and professional. And finally, are you using effective job search resources, right? Do you know the resources? Do you know how to conduct the process of job search? Your resume, your cover letter, and LinkedIn need to be reviewed by a few people. Ideally, your reviewer should be a career counselor at UCSB Career Services. If you know recruiters, then maybe recruiters or professionals in the industry that you've made contacts with. You can also ask your friends, mentors, alumni to review your application materials. And your application materials should include the most relevant and recent experiences. So what are some good job boards, I would say, right? The best, I would say, is Handshake. As a UCSB student, you all have access to Handshake, and Handshake is very customizable. There are ways you can do the toggles where you can put in industry areas, part-time, full-time positions, locations, all of that good stuff. And some jobs are just exclusively for UCSB students or alumni of UCSB. So sometimes those jobs may not be out in the open on LinkedIn. They may just be on Handshake, and they may be only visible to you because you're a UCSB student. So we would highly suggest Handshake. The other ones, I think a lot of you know, they're Indeed.com, LinkedIn, Glassdoor. If you are looking for specialized jobs in specialized industries, there are niche job boards. So for example, one of the top ones is Idealist. So if you're looking for a job in the nonprofit sector or developmental space or development space, then Idealist is one of the top job boards out there. It should be at the top of every student who's thinking about a job in policy, nonprofit-ish world. Idealist.org should be on that, right? Now, you can also look at LinkedIn. LinkedIn jobs have turned into a major sort of aggregator of job ads. And so LinkedIn jobs is really, really cool and even more like as customizable as Handshake. And so that's another one that I would highly recommend all of you to test it out. Right. Another thing that you can do is you can go directly to employers. So, create a target list of organizations or firms or industry areas that you might be interested in. And you can probably talk to either recruiters. So you can look for recruiters on LinkedIn in that particular industry area or firm, and you can set up conversations with them. Another thing is career fair. So UCSB hosts a career fair through our office every quarter. So the winter one is coming up, and on Handshake, if you type in winter career fair, there's tons of details, and you can actually look at all the employers that are coming to the winter career fair. We have 53 employers coming with positions for every major out there. And so another way to connect with employers is to go to these career fairs, have your documents ready, strike up conversations, and then move on. Once you make that connection, then move on to the actual application phase, or if they invite you for an interview or something like that. Another great way is if you go on Handshake, there's tons of events, and I'll show you how to do that. You can attend employer information sessions, employer info sessions, and now they're virtual, they're great. You can attend an info session that an employer is running, for New York, and you can probably jump in if it's on Handshake. The reason why they're great is because you can make connections with most likely recruiters or project managers within those firms who come to these info sessions. You can strike up a conversation, and then maybe once you strike up that brief conversation during an employer info session, ask them to do a informational interview later on. Or if it's a recruiter, maybe talk to a recruiter after the info session or another time. So that's a great way to get in front of the employers. Another is on-campus interviews. They come around often, and sometimes there are specialized firms that love to do on-campus interviews at UCSB. and you can try to see if you qualify for those. Another is career panels, right? So if there are career panels on a particular industry that you find on Handshake or through our announcements, then please, go into the career panels, ask good questions. Usually there's office hours after career panels, and that's really where you get to make a connection with the panelists who sometimes have inside view on industries or firms that you're interested in, and maybe can help you connect with someone that is in a hiring position or is in a position to guide you better, right? So that's another way to sort of get in front of the employers, so to speak. Do your research before approaching employers. You need to research the firm, you need to research the job title, have a pretty good idea about what the job opportunities are and what the organization is about. Please do not ask questions that are easily Googleable, as I would say. That seems sloppy, and employers tend to notice that because lots of people meet them through this way. And what we really advise is when it comes to job search, like we said, fit your current goals and experiences, right? If they're non-negotiables, be honest with yourself about them. Those are your non-negotiables. Finally, if you do get a job offer, don't rush to say yes. You have time to assess. All employers do give you that opportunity to assess whether you want to take the job or not. If an employer says, oh, you got to say yes to me on this particular phone call, then it's an unreasonable ask, and maybe that's not the employer, that's not a good employer. That's all I can say. The other thing I would say is if you are not certain that you will take this job, please do not say yes. The reason being, if you accept the job and then you don't take the job, that might seriously hurt your chances with that company in the future. So it's a serious matter. Accepting a job offer is a serious matter, and only accept it if you intend to take that job. Don't job offer flip. That's all I gotta say. Now we're moving on to the get hired section. So this section I'm going to breeze through a little bit more, as we have dedicated workshops on each of these topics. So we just had a workshop on resumes and cover letters. We have workshops coming up on LinkedIn. We have workshops on interview success. We have an entire slate of workshops that we do every quarter. So please do attend those. So I'm going to breeze through them, and this was just to give you an idea as to the services that we offer. My colleague Joanne has linked the digital calendar for winter 2022 in the chat box, so please go and check it out. So resumes. You can find more information about how to create resumes on our website. So if you go to career.ucsb.edu, click the Get Hired tab, then click the Resumes tab. We have 5 very in-depth, detailed sections about how to create a great resume. Resumes nowadays have to be ATS compliant. ATS is a computer software that matches your resume to the job ad. Hence, again, we go back to the first point I made. Look at the job ad, make sure you have those skills or the tools that the job ad is looking for, and try to mirror those in your resume. The other thing about a good resume is experience. But your experience can be anything: paid, unpaid, volunteer. As long as you're learning new skills, learning, developing new tools in your toolbox, that experience can be put on your resume. It doesn't matter if it's paid, unpaid, or volunteer. So if you've not done a paid internship, but you've done tons of volunteer work, great, that's experience, that counts, that's valuable, right? Your experience working at USEN in the kitchen is valuable. Do not dismiss any of your own life experiences, because even if you got paid, very minimally paid, or if it's a normal job like delivering pizza, or if it's working at, Santa Barbara Humane Shelter, that's experience. You've learned something, think about it, and translate that into your resume that an employer will recognize and value, right? And we have a ton of resume examples on our website that you can download and see how to structure your resume. And finally, VMOC. VMOC is our ATS, our private ATS type software. So if you upload your resume, VMOC will give you detailed suggestions on how to improve it, give you a score, and you can take it from there. Cover letters. So if you, again, go on the Get Hired tab, click the Cover Letters tab, we have a detailed cover letter section on how to write them. Briefly, they should be 1 page, 3 to 5 paragraphs with the introduction, body, and closing. And a cover letter should work on the STARS formula. Situation, task, action, result, so what, right? So you have to convey your experiences. Cover letters are the link between your resume and the job ad. They contextualize your resume, make it come alive for the employer. So you don't need to mirror everything that's in your resume into your cover letter. What you need to do is to pick up 1 or 2 experiences that is in your resume and contextualize it for the employer to show why you would be an amazing candidate at that particular job. LinkedIn. LinkedIn is basically, if you go to Get Hired tab, LinkedIn tab, we have tons of information on how to create a great LinkedIn. You got to build your profile. It's got 4 sections: headline, about, experience, and education. You can grow your connections on LinkedIn. You can connect with alumni. You can connect with people who probably needed a visa for a particular job. You can even look for jobs on LinkedIn. And that's and we have a LinkedIn workshop that should be on the digital calendar. So these are our resources on our website. We have tons of career path specific information. So we have 6 career paths around which all of our counselors are dedicated to. So as I mentioned initially, I'm the career counselor for business and entrepreneurship. So if students who are interested in the world of business, quote unquote, large, or in the world of entrepreneurship, I like to, those students come to me. And the thing is, we have by design not not done it by major, because we firmly believe, as you should start believing as well, that majors do not equal careers. You can have any major by and large and get into any career path by and large. It's all about your experiences. It's all about the skills you've developed, and it's all about how you pitch yourself to that job ad, to that particular employer. So we have business and entrepreneurship, communication and arts, education and human services, law and government, and science and health. It covers the entire gamut of industry areas that you can think of. So please do check out those career paths, and we list the counselors that are in those career paths. So please do check that out. Finally, for you guys, we have a communities tab. So if you go to communities and click international, we have tons of information about what international students can do in terms of getting experiences. There's information about on and off campus jobs, job application questions, and how to navigate work culture in the US. Detailed information about how to understand these nuances and what are some of the tips of the trade. So now we go to tools. What are the tools that are best suited for international students in terms of job search strategies? So first one that I'd like to highlight is Going Global. Going Global is a dedicated portal for international students looking for jobs in the US, but also abroad. Yes, these links will be sent to your emails. You will get the slide deck. The other thing that going global is really cool is that there's career guides. So there's country career guides, and then there are major city career guides. If you go into there's a country career guide for India. If you want a job in India, there's a country career guide for China. There's a country career guide for, I don't know, Spain. But there's also city career guides. So if you want a job in Austin, I'm pretty sure I was reading about jobs, a city career guide in Austin, Texas, right? So if you don't know about firms in those particular cities in the US or industry areas that are popular in that particular city or region, if you just kind of want to understand what it means to work in Southern California, what are some of the obstacles and opportunities, those city career guides are great. Then there's the H-1B database. The H-1B database is shows you which firms tend to hire H-1B. I think this is a data that is processed from either, I'm going to misquote the agency here, but one of the US government agency probably puts out this terrible Excel sheet, and people at Going Global process it in a way that's understandable for you. So firms that sponsor H-1B, or cities or industries that have more H-1B visa holders and get H-1B visas, right? So that's really cool on Going Global. So like I said, career guides, you have country career guides here. You have global city career guides, and then US city career guides. So if it's like a big global city and you're interested in working in London or Amsterdam or Singapore or Shanghai, it's probably out there, and it will tell you a lot more than I can say in this 20 minutes. Finally, the H-1B database. This is the database of, like I said, US Department of Labor records everything from 2009 to date around H-1Bs, and you can conduct detailed searches on positions and employers who tend to hire international graduates. So if you go on Going Global, this is the page that will show up. And if you click H-1B visas, this little H-1B plus thing will show up, and you can see how to use this. There's a great, quick, I think 2-3 minute how-to video using H-1B search, and then you can start using it around firms and employers and positions who get more, who basically will sponsor H-1B. And finally, career news. So there's lots of information here. You don't have to read every single article that pops up every morning, but there's lots of articles that might be of interest to you, particularly around trends on hiring information in different professions. I really love these news articles because if you want to know a hiring trend in a very niche profession, or in a profession that maybe your career counselor doesn't know every single information about, Going Global will give you that detailed information. Somebody has done the research for you. You just have to read and find that article. And I really like that. The second tool that, again, we like to highlight is Handshake. So Handshake job search tools are great. You can customize by job type, job role, industry, employers, and work authorization. Now, I know you guys don't need an OPT CPT, so you don't have to particularly click that button, but you can still customize based on job type, job role, industry, and employers. Now, when I say you need to narrow your search, it's great that you are thinking about narrowing your search, but don't make it so narrow that you only have 3 or 4 jobs populate. So there is a balance between making it excessively narrow job search and making it a really broad job search. And so that is going to come by experience as you manipulate Handshake. You can also set up alerts. So those alerts can come into your inbox. Finally, you can also attend events, like I was saying, get in front of the employers, attend the events hosted by UCSB. So if you go on Handshake and you click events, There's tons of events that pop up and you can save them, right? So then when you open your handshake, you know that, okay, there's an employer info session today that I need to attend. Or there's an event hosted by UCSB next week that I really want to try out, right? So we definitely want you to attend the events as well as start customizing your job search. The additional strategies. So there is a hidden job market, and that market is basically networking. What we want you guys to understand is that a lot of jobs in the US and maybe around the world comes through a lot of networking connections, comes through word of mouth, comes through people knowing other people that they think would be good for this job, right? And you need to start getting your word out there. You need to start getting yourself out there so people know that you're ready for hire. I know LinkedIn now has a little thing where it says ready for hire and it like shows up on your little photo. Well, this is your version of I'm ready for hire. And it's not just a LinkedIn profile that stays there saying you're ready for hire, but this is active strategy to make sure your name is out there. You're making those connections with alumni, employers, firms, industries to know that you're available, that you're looking for jobs, and this is your qualification. These are the jobs that you're interested in. So how do you build your network? And so the way you build your network is you get your name out there. You seek introductions with people or you seek referrals. So someone in your network can introduce you to a company or a hiring manager that you're interested in. You can talk to them about what you might be looking for or whether or not you might be a good fit for an open position. You might even know someone who doesn't know anything about you, but they might know somebody else. So the more connections you build, the more first-degree connections, second-degree connections you can create. You can start by talking to relatives, friends, professors, staff members, student activities. Your student groups, your professional student groups are a great way to start. So I know in business and entrepreneurship, UCSB's Finance Connection, the Undergraduate Accounting Society, the 180 DC Consulting, they have helped tons and tons of students find connections within accounting, finance, or consulting, make those help students build connections and find internships and jobs. So you can do that, of course, through relatives, friends, LinkedIn informational interviews, or through student orgs. Professional orgs are some of the best ways to find these connections as you have a set structure that's inbuilt. And really, you need to network everywhere. Networking is about developing a connection with people, learning about them, identifying interests that you guys have in common, or something, even if you don't have interests in common, you can just reach out to somebody and say, hey, I'm really interested in what you do, and I'm interested in this as well. Can we have a conversation? Or sometimes it doesn't work out and it flames out, and that's okay. But you just ask that person, do you know somebody that you can connect with? And more likely than not, if they're working in an industry or a firm that you're interested in, they'll know someone and they'll connect you. Finally, informational interviews. Informational interviews are a great way to build your network. They help you gather information and potentially find a friend or mentor along the way, right? So research your individuals, find them on LinkedIn or Gaucho Network, which is UCSB's version of LinkedIn, and initiate a contact. I would say even if your success rate is 10%, so one contact responds to your 10 messages, you're doing great. Then prepare those questions. So if you're reaching out to someone and you say, hey, hello, I'm interested in this firm or industry. I saw you're in that industry as well. Can we have a brief phone conversation or Zoom conversation? I'd like to ask some questions. Research the individual, research the industry. Do not ask any questions that are Googleable. Again, that looks sloppy. Prepare those questions, right? And finally, when you actually meet them, be appropriate. Do not ask for a job. Informational interviews are not job sourcing strategies. They are there for you to know more about the firm. right? And after your informational interview, ask them if they know someone else and they can connect you, and then you build your network out. Finally, thank them, follow up with them, keep them in the loop as to where you're going, because you never know who will come to help you later on. Finally, safety tips. If it's too good to be true, it probably is. Always research the employers. Do not get hired without an interview. That's a red flag. Do not pay somebody to get a job. That's not how it works. Do not send payments, right? Do not, if something is sloppy, not easily researchable. That's why we say handshake, because all handshake job ads are verified, and so you are safely assured. And finally, utilize our services, right? We have document review, which is VMOC, and we review your cover letters. We can do drop-in advising to chat about your career-related questions, individual appointments, tons of workshops. I think we host like 20 workshops a quarter, something like that, 15 to 20 workshops a quarter just by UCSB. Tons more on Handshake hosted by employers. There's fairs every quarter and other info sessions.